Cool.
I'm wondering where all the rest of the classes though.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, today it's super cold here.
It is. Oh,
Yeah.
Tuesday was torrential rain.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hi,
Yeah. Hey,
welcome.
how are you? Good to see you. Yeah, let's wait another minute and then we officially kick off things.
Yep, 11 people.
We have 11 people online and another what, 6, 7, 8, 10, something like that. One person.
Still waiting for 10 more people.
10
or
more.
15.
Yeah, 15 more people. Yeah. Okay. How was your day, Anna?
I have been quite disturbed by the events in Ukraine.
Yeah, that was super disturbed too.
So, yeah, just it's very shocking on many fronts. So part of the day I spent a little bit paralyzed, trying to figure out and trying to somehow understand what's happening. I not only have very close friends in Ukraine, and one of them is actually a member of the parliament, but also a part of our team are Ukrainians. And yeah, I was just checking on how they are doing. And our tech lead actually is most of our blockchain development is being done in Ukraine. And just hearing that he's hiding in the cellar with his wife and his baby was something outside of this realm of outside the realm of my reality, and that's how
it's crazy.
it feels like today for many tech companies. Actually, Ukraine is a development powerhouse and so many are affected, and now they can't even leave the country anymore because Ukraine is mobilizing for war. So all male citizens 18 to 60 years old cannot leave the country anymore. I was offering them help to relocate to Lithuania or anywhere where they want to go. So we'll see what is happening, but the whole team is shocked as well.
Yeah, I was under the impression that there was freedom of movement between the Ukraine and the rest of the EU, but it sounds like that's going to be rescinded on Ukraine's side, at least for males who could potentially go to war. Wow, that's it's nuts.
It's like a movie,
Mm-hmm.
Nothing you can expect to be happening. So close. It's in Europe, it's not somewhere other faraway continents.
Right. We have the blessing in the U.S. of being pretty dislocated, so it is the somewhere else in the world kind of thing. But I'm sure it directly affects a lot in the next few weeks of what international politics is going to be like for the next few years.
Yeah.
So, all the best wishes to you and yours for sure.
Well, hard day for the world, and I think many companies, as you said, Ada, and I could echo exactly the same story in a portfolio company that I'm also assisting. So since 7 a.m., 6:30 a.m. on phone calls, trying to support people like you and me, and trying to support them with their families, right? So that's what first. Yeah, thanks for sharing this. This is kind of also part of a very hard situation that we entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs have to go through, right? With dealing with circumstances that you maybe have never dealt before, right? And even though it's hard, I would like to switch now to the class topic. And first of all, great to see you guys. How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
Let me see how many people we have online. I think they're slowly but surely coming more and more. We have today the pleasure to have a serial entrepreneur with us, which I had the pleasure to meet a couple of weeks ago and chat for the first time, and was impressed about the capability of execution and what she has achieved in this world of blockchain already. And humbly asked her if she would like to contribute here to the class, and she accepted. Ada, thank you so much for doing this. Today we'll be hearing about Ada, um, her lessons learned. And I would like to introduce real quick Ada Jonuse. I hope I didn't butcher your name. Startup founder and woman empowerment agent, and as co-founder and CEO of blockchain company Lympo, acquired by an Asian unicorn, Animoca. And we'll be having the pleasure to have Yat here also speaking. And we had also some other colleagues from let's call it the Animoca umbrella, here also being part of our class. Lympo is building a gamified sports NFT ecosystem, including NFTs with IP rights of world famous athletes and clubs. After leaving European politics, Ada worked with high-tech startups in the tech US and later become entrepreneur and startup advisor herself. Ada is also co-founder of WAT. Is this correct or okay? A network for women professionals. Ada's aspiration is to work with great people on meaningful projects. Ada gets inspiration from meditation, science, and art. Ada, thank you so much for being here. The screen is yours. And we have roughly 20, 30 minutes time, depending on what you had pre-scheduled, right? Followed by a short Q&A. So class, help me. Please welcome Ada. Thank you so much for doing this.
Amazing. I'll flip it to the class now.
Okay, yeah.
Let me
Okay,
start with
awesome.
sharing my screen.
Raise the volume.
Oh, the camera's not working?
Hello, everyone. Can you see the screen well?
Yes.
Yes, looks amazing.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So here I wanted to shortly present the two organizations that I represent. One of them is Lympo. And I'm not going to talk a lot about what we're doing, just shortly summarizing the product so that you understand better my background. Actually, Lympo was created in 2017. So in the blockchain terms, it's many years, it's like 10 years. Everything moves so fast, so it feels like it's another decade. And our first application, we've been working on monetizing the health data and creating an ecosystem for people to share and be rewarded for their health data. That didn't work at that time. We have faced a lot of technical challenges and execution challenges in what we wanted to build. I hope it would work right now with all the advances in the blockchain technology made. And then the company was acquired by Animoca Brands, and Animoca Brands is a big blockchain powerhouse, and they're focusing a lot on NFTs and play to earn gaming. And so we have pivoted, and our current products are an NFT minting platform, an NFT staking platform. We're developing star tokens of individual athletes. We have recently announced our first game that we're going to launch a little bit later this year. And we have also announced that we have signed a deal with the best chess player in the world, Magnus Carlsen, and his company that has another 30 chess athletes. And we will be developing a blockchain-based chess game with hopefully a great gaming studio. We're still negotiating, so can't announce anything more, but these are the exciting news about Lympo. And then I also represent the Blockchain Center. It's a launchpad advisory consulting organization that I'm part of, that was founded last summer, and we're helping companies to launch their projects, to launch their tokens, NFTs into the blockchain world. So a lot of my experience not only comes from Lympo, but from helping other projects, other companies, and looking at their applications, at their documents, and seeing what issues they're dealing with. So I've been asked to talk about the value creation models for dApps, and I have here 3 models that I want to talk about: utility tokens, NFTs, DAOs, and then one hands-on part of this application where we're gonna look closer at what the light paper is, what parts of the light paper are important, how to write it, what tools to use right now so that it's up to the industry standards. And then we will discuss this, and I will hear your questions and gladly answer if I can. So the first value creation model for a dApp is to attach some kind of utility tokens. Now, what's important when you're thinking about that? So it's super important to have a clear understanding what's the difference between the utility and security tokens. Obviously, when it comes to security tokens, anything that where the tokens are related to the performance of the company, and the buyers of the tokens can expect that if the company performs well, their kind of returns will grow. If you come with this proposal, then these type of tokens, they have to be registered and released as a security. And obviously no one wants to do that. It's super expensive. It takes a lot of time. Legislation is not very clear. The legal framework is not always obvious there. So there are companies that have done that. And I know a few names, and I really appreciate their efforts going this hard way. But I don't know much about that, and so I will focus on the other side of the tokens, and on the other type of the tokens that you can release, that are utility tokens. So utility tokens are related to any kind of service that users can get with these tokens. So at the beginning of the project, it has to be clear, what people are getting for these tokens, and then actually, when they are issued, it is being seen as the users who are purchasing them are supposedly purchasing the services, the future services in advance. And it has to be clear later on how these tokens can be spent, how they can be used, and what you can get for them. So of course, when I say this, a lot of people are like, yeah, but there are these coins that are just meme coins, Dodge and whatever. Of course, it's a very diverse field, and all type of interesting concepts exist. But I wouldn't bet my money on a meme coin. Maybe that's a wrong investment strategy. But I myself and the companies that we work with, we really focus on creating a product that meaningfully utilizes the token. And the next thing, once you kind of figure out what that is, I think the next important step is to think about the tokenomics. And tokenomics is a part, we will also talk about this briefly when we talk about the light paper parts. But what's important to understand looking at the tokenomics, it's basically the distribution of the total token supply. Of course, there are ways to release the tokens where the total supply is not minted yet, or there are other ways to burn tokens and release new tokens. But here, my focus is going to be on the tokens where there is a clear token supply. Let's see, 1 billion tokens. And then in the tokenomics part of the light paper, you're going to talk about how they're divided for different purposes, especially marketing and liquidity pools allocations are important because you're going to need the tokens to stake in various liquidity pools on various decentralized exchanges. And the other important part of the tokenomics is, to create this clear cycle, this internal economy of your product, where you very clearly understand what people are paying the tokens for and how they're getting paid in tokens, how that interacts, and also what the how you are going to ensure the balanced token supply and demand. So, if we release a lot of tokens at once into the market, or if the product is only rewarding people with tokens, we see a lot of projects where people are getting tokens for doing something. It's good, but basically it just means the token is going to lose in its value over the time. If there is no meaningful way to actually spend the token, to utilize it for something that your product is providing. So I have written down some examples. Of course, I'm very biased, belonging to the Animoca Brands family, but it's also because I know these companies, I know the founders, I know the projects, I believe in them, and I think they've done great work. And, if you Google this, just Gamey light paper or Sandbox white paper, you're going to find the documents where they describe, where the companies, the teams describe how the tokens are used, and you'll be able to check their tokenomics. And important to note, and always good to keep in mind, are the boring stuff. Accounting, taxes, jurisdictions. So as I said, in many jurisdictions, utility tokens are seen as prepayments for services. And that has taxing implications for you. In some countries, this can be delayed. So you don't have to pay taxes from the tokens that you issued the first year, but over a period of years. But you will have to be able to show that actually people receive the services for their tokens. And it just varies a lot. And in other jurisdictions, it's regulated differently. Lympo is registered in Estonia. We have been able to do that in the European Union. But basically, there are a lot of models out there. It's just important to understand before you do that what it means for your company, what it means for your balance sheet, for your accountant, and how you're going to deal with that, what it is from the accounting point of view. Now, the second model is NFTs. So when we think of NFTs, and of course, there has been a lot of hype, a lot of people disappointed by the hype. It's a JPEG, there is nothing behind it. Why are people buying it? So just to kind of silence these voices, and I think it's important to focus on one fact, on the potential of NFTs. And the potential is huge, and that is that any digital asset ownership can be an NFT. So anything that you own online, anything that you can send to anyone else online, anything that has value online can be an NFT. So we started with and it's, of course, it's my take on that. That's how I see it. Don't only listen to me, and there are other people who are gonna maybe have a different approach here. But how I see it is that we started with the first wave of NFTs, where people got super excited about the digital ownership, about the possibility to own things online, and we have seen a lot of NFTs in the space of arts, sports, collectibles. So these are kind of things that you purchase, and then maybe from the investment point of view, you believe that they can grow in value. We know that for NFTs, actually 99% of NFTs lose value over time. But it's more related to the emotion. You want to belong. You want to maybe have bragging rights about that, maybe display on a screen in your room. So it's kind of an emotional purchase. Now, what I think about the next wave of NFTs, I think that nowadays it's not easy to release NFTs that only have this emotional value, except if these are really famous artists or some kind of very limited NFTs. What I see a trend where there has to be more utility added to these NFTs. And one of the obvious utility that we're working with is the utilization of these NFTs in the play-to-earn environment in gaming industry that is huge, that is booming, and that is bigger than the music and movie industry together. So there's a huge power behind that, and so much money is generated in that in the industry just by people purchasing in-game assets. And now this can all be turned into NFTs, enable interoperability, enable people to actually make money out of that, not only the gaming companies, and enable much fairer distribution in all of the industry among those who are creating the value in the games. And this is, of course, the gamers who are playing that game. Then we see a lot of NFTs that have various metaverse integrations. And actually, the kind of new cool thing for me is, for example, NFT that you'll be able, or where you also have an access to a form of it, or maybe the NFT itself can be utilized in various metaverses. So a user, by purchasing an NFT, already knows, okay, I can utilize it in Sandbox, I can utilize it in Decentraland, maybe I can utilize it somewhere else. So there's some kind of further utility to it. And of course, interoperability is a big question. You know, how are we gonna, like, the goal is not to create closed ecosystems, because then everyone is just locked in them, and it's just like the Web 2.0 world, so nothing changed too much. But we want to see examples or ways to actually move those NFTs from one application to another, from one game to another. And they might be on different chains or have different ways of functioning. So interoperability is a big thing. And solving that, the NFT project itself can solve that, or various related services. And we see more and more of them. And also the whole GameFi ecosystem. So everything related to the NFTs, to the utilization of the NFTs as assets, where they can be loaned, they can be used as to get a loan, they can be leased. Gamers guilds can buy NFTs together. There's co-ownership of NFTs and all kind of new concepts where, we take something that has value and build the ecosystem around that. Now DAOs. So I'm super interested in DAOs right now, and for several reasons. One of them is, of course, DAO is a decentralized anonymous organization. So it's a type of organization that is run by the holders of the governance tokens, and they're deciding where the company is moving in the future, how the product is developing. And here are the few features of DAOs that I've written down, that there's no leadership, or the leadership is very flexible. So someone could start the project and someone else could be the leading voice later on. And actually, for an entrepreneur, you have to be able to actually let go of the idea, or let the idea live its own life after it's released. It's this detachment from your ego. In many DAOs, we have a full anonymity, so we actually don't know who the people behind the token holders are. And the most interesting feature, I think, thinking about what type of products, what type of applications can we build with DAOs, is that in the traditional world, we have these two groups. We have shareholders and we have users, and their interests are not the same. And then in the end, quite often shareholders' interests win, just because how the organizations are run. They have to stay competitive. If they're publicly listed, they have more and more, they have to give away more and more power. And imagining big applications from our nowadays world, like Facebook, like YouTube, like Spotify, in a fully decentralized way, ran in a fully decentralized way, is something that I'm super, super excited about nowadays. And it's a foundation of the new type of internet. And it has these implications that we actually have to create a new legal system that can deal with these type of companies. And maybe it can lead to a new economic system where a lot of power is taken away from monopolies and distributed for the users who are actually creating the content that creates the value. So this I find it super exciting, and I'm learning a lot. And actually, a new token that we're releasing with Lympo is going to have some DAO functionalities. Probably it's going to be related to the treasury and a possibility for users to vote on some decisions that are related to the treasury. And we're designing this and just, learning by doing that. And yeah, important takeaways about DAOs is that actually DAOs are security tokens. So because they resemble shares much, I would argue that it's not the same. But because from the perspective of the legal system, it has these shares features, and that's why they're deemed to be security tokens. But there are still DAOs that exist, and there are a few ways how people are doing that. So one of them, they're going fully anonymous, and they're just hoping that in case there are some legal implications, they're not going to be identified. So I'm dealing on a daily basis with people whom I only know from, on Telegram. They are on Discord. They have an avatar and a fake name. And if we have calls, some of them even use software to change their voice. They're not using emails. We don't know where they're located. I can guess from the times when we schedule the calls. And they have taken this pure DAO way where it's really fully decentralized and fully anonymous. There are ways to reduce the DAO functionalities to just advisory voting, or the voting that is not essential for companies' management. So if it's possible to prove that people are just advising the founders to do something, but it's not a mandatory vote, then obviously it's easier to say it doesn't have the functionality of the shares, right? Because the shareholders' decisions quite often they have to be implemented. Of course, it depends on what type of decisions, when, how many people are voting, and so on and so forth. In the US, there's a way to create a DAO if there are less than 100 investors. So some organizations have taken that way, but for me, it seems it's actually an old form. It's been existing for over 100 years. So for me, it seems it's not this new paradigm we want to create, but maybe it's a useful way to play with that and to get to know how these things are working. Also, if DAO tokens are not traded, but only used for voting or burned, then it's another way to somehow say that people are not buying DAO tokens, they're receiving them, for example, for using the platform, and then they can do something with that. Then they don't qualify to be security tokens. And there are some companies that just don't care about that, or don't think, or believe they're too big to, I don't know what's the thinking behind that. But I found this quote by Frank Rotman from FinTech VC QED, who calls it a mass civil disobedience, who calls, for example, Uniswap decentralized exchange a mass civil disobedience, and it looks like that. And in the last part of my presentation, I'm gonna focus more about the hands-on task about writing a light paper. So this is the how people in the blockchain space or investors sometimes view the the light papers. So it's something where you describe your project in a very nice way. Then you go to production, and then this is the actual release. And the blockchain ICO or IDO is the token generation event where people gather money for the token. So I don't quite agree with that, but there is some truth. You know, there is some truth in every joke. And I'm going to talk about this in the next slide. But here, first of all, I just wanted to present this checklist that I've put together for you. And I also have one actually Excel sheet with much more extensive descriptions on what each part of the light paper means. But it's basically a document that's like a pitch deck, just in a written form or in a longer form, that you will present to your investors if you want to create a decentralized application with tokens and want to raise funds via the token generation events. And some people are scared of that. It looks like a little bit like a coursework. Some of them are very long. They used to be called white papers, then they used to be much longer. Now the new standard is called light paper, and it's much shorter. So new trends, good for people who don't like to write a lot. The usual tool used for that, the standard tool of all the light papers that are coming out right now is Gitbook. You can look it up. It's just a solution to put the text and present it in a meaningful way. And yeah, here are the mandatory parts that, you know, definitely have to be represented in your light paper one way or another, which is token utility. So we spoke about that. What is the token actually going to be used for? So with this token, you can A, get something, B, maybe vote on some decisions, C, maybe get some services for it, and so on. Token release schedule is something that a lot of projects forget, but from the point of investors, it's super important. It's the way how you're gonna manage the release of your tokens, you know, how many tokens you wanna release into the market over time. So an investor might, or a supporter who wants to purchase your tokens might look at your token total supply, how many tokens are released right now. Let's say your token total supply is 1 billion tokens. Right now you have only released 10% of them. And there is a threat that if you, for some reason, release a big amount of tokens into the market, the demand is not as high as the supply, and my token loses the value. So how do you manage in your product with the growth of the users, with the growth of the product, the slow release of the tokens? And you can present your projections here. You know, it can be of a scale of 5 to 8 or to 10 years. Tokenomics is a way how the token is utilized. The distribution of the full token pool also. Maybe some of the tokens are locked for some years. Maybe they're locked with a contract, so everyone can check that they're really there and that really there is no way how you're going to get to them earlier than they unlock. Maybe that's used for some early investors who bought with a discount. Then you have a roadmap, technical roadmap, go-to-market strategy, you know, who's going to adopt your project, how, when, who are your partners, how you're going to approach the growth, and the part on the smart contract. Best to provide the link to smart contracts so that everyone can see it, and the audit, so that there is a security audit. There was a third party that actually verified that your contract is secure and it's not going to be hacked the second day after the release of the token. And there are some parts in this checklist that you can either add to the light paper itself or to your website. So these parts can be here, but don't necessarily have to be here. And then just finally, the final slide about the lessons learned. writing some white papers, light papers, and I think, yeah, our first one was a little bit like that picture, because when we got to implementation, it turned out some things are more challenging than we thought, and so on. But it's good for a startup. Everyone is saying you have to pivot, you have to see very quickly if that doesn't work out. But okay, if you release your token and now 10,000 people own your token and they're writing messages every single day on your Telegram or Discord channel, it's not so easy to pivot. It's not so easy to come back to the token holders and say, hey, actually, we tried this out, it doesn't work now, it's going to be something else. So how do you balance that? So it's good to say if there are some things that you don't know, say that this is going to be defined at a later point, or just be able to pivot and adjust with time. The second lesson is swimming against the current. It really, really, really doesn't make sense to release a token or any major product updates or basically any bigger news when the market conditions are bad. You're not going to be able to swim against the current. You're not going to be able to get this excitement in your product, and that's probably not going to have a sustainable or any effect on your token. So actually what we do a lot, and a lot of blockchain companies do, is prepare the marketing plans, then observing, of course, the market situation, especially the Bitcoin price or the price of other tokens that your token is correlated to. Right now, the market is much more divided into different industries. So we always look at the tokens that are in the play to earn space, because we know sometimes there might be a trend in that particular niche of the industry. And then according to how the market is moving, the marketing and product department are reacting. And sometimes, you have to wait for a while the timing is right. So everyone says it's all about the timing, and it's extremely true for the crypto market. And then finally, for any entrepreneur in the space, I think the hard thing to solve is to understand what your real product actually is. Because how I see it is, as soon as you're going to release your token, you have two products, and one of them is your token and the other is your actual product. And of course they're correlated, and everyone is going to tell, yeah, your token situation, price, growth is going to be depending on the growth of your product. And that is true, but there are also things that affect the token, how the traders are perceiving it, how the trading networks, the bots, the arbitrage, and so on works, that is not related to your product. And if you don't take care of that part of listings, of all kind of engagement with decentralized exchanges, centralized exchanges, then it's going to be very, very hard for you to reach any meaningful progress with the product only. And that's why, for example, in our company, we have two different teams. It's a new thing that we have introduced actually recently. Kind of a second product team that is called the token team, that is working on the token-related matters only. And this is an advice that we got from companies that are further than ours. And I think it makes perfect sense, because I've been thinking about this for quite some time, how to actually balance this. So that's it from me. I have used my time now. I know that we might have a little bit more time today than planned, so we can open the floor now for discussions. Please stay in touch. I'm available on these channels, and yeah, I'd be excited to hear your questions and discuss anything that you found interesting or important during this presentation.
So first of all, before we kick off questions, how was the talk, guys? Huh?
Let's give a round of applause. Woo!
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll take a couple of questions. Any questions? Please come forward.
Hi. So
Cameras over here.
I'll second. So I really like the point where you talked about using utility tokens, but then that's basically you creating a different branch of your own product because now you have a utility token to focus on. And for example, if you're building that out for your NFTs, right? So you have to focus on your NFTs as well and the utility tokens as well, right? So now there are a lot of projects or companies that are coming out where they're using the ERC-721s or the NFTs itself as utility tokens, right? But then that's again a double-edged sword because, for example, if you are staking that or if you are farming using that your NFT, then in a way you are sending it to a contract and losing the ownership of that, right? Because that leaves you susceptible, like you said, there might be bots that might be looking into those contracts and how they can be susceptible to that, right? So, how do you see, in your perspective, what's the best way to identify the utility ecosystem around NFTs?
Yeah, it's a good question. The kind of the direct answer is I don't know, and I think that no one actually really knows. A lot of this experimenting around NFTs just comes from from the industry pioneers. We know how tokens work, but all the things related to adding this additional value to NFTs, what you mentioned, staking, lending, leasing, borrowing, exchanging with others, borrowing for a certain time, wrapping. There's a way to wrap tokens around NFTs, and then you unwrap them in some year, and maybe the value of tokens have grown. So defining the floor price, oracles that are observing the price. I think that right now no one actually has a very good answer to that, and that's the beauty and the problem with the space. That actually, maybe in 3 years we'll be able to answer this question and say, oh well, actually utilizing NFTs this way is not a good idea, but utilizing NFTs this way is a good idea. So there are some examples that you can follow, but basically we're also experimenting a lot ourselves. So I don't have. It's a very smart question, and yeah, I wish maybe you have a way to find it out yourself.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the candid feedback. Let's take another question. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. You talked about the first company in the blockchain world, which was about monetizing health data. And so I was wondering if you could share with us what exactly you did, how far you came, and why you failed.
Yeah. Oh yeah, these are the best lessons when you know what doesn't work. You might not know what works, but you definitely know what doesn't work. Okay. So the idea, it's not the first company in the space that is doing that, and there are a lot of companies that are doing that right now, and I hope we're going to see a front runner in this. The idea is clear to understand and maybe not so easy to implement, but we understand there is a value around our health data, especially the data that is more personal. So not just the kind of the general metrics, but with the spread of the usage of the smart devices, smart watches, all kind of other smart health devices, we as users, we can gather quite a lot of data about our well-being. And we call this patient-generated data. So it's our heart rhythm, the number of steps we take, the number of hours we sleep. We can work with various apps to define our stress level, and all kind of things. The number of minutes we meditate, and so on and so forth. So putting all of this in one place, plus adding our demographics, actually represents quite a valuable set of data. Now, how it runs right now is how a lot of Web 2.0 applications run. users produce this data, and then companies are anonymizing it and selling it to the buyers of this data. Can be anything from various brands, health and wellness companies, to even companies that can use it for research. Maybe if the data is more refined, it's even possible to use it in some experiments and so on and so forth. So the idea behind our app was that we provide an app where users can gather a lot of data from various applications and wearables. We had integrations with quite a few most popular wearables, especially we work a lot with Samsung and Samsung Health, Samsung Watch, and so on. And how we incentivize people to do that, we give them challenges, we give them token rewards, we give opportunities to win something, leaderboard, engagement. And they are collecting all of this data in one profile on the application. And what we wanted to do is to match the data buyers with data sellers. And then according to the user and according to their preferences, what data they're ready to share with the data buyer, they can choose to monetize it. So every time someone else would access the data via an API, for their usage, they would offer a small token reward. So instead of paying us, the company that stands as intermediary between the data providers and data buyers, we would match them directly, and our company just takes a small transaction fee. And there are a lot of applications of this, not only in the marketing, advertising world, but in working with people who are maybe undergoing the rehabilitation period after an illness, after a surgery, where they have to exercise, have to walk certain number of steps a day. We know that humans are much better to administer medicine to their dogs than to themselves. So we don't care about ourselves that much. So all these kind of applications could help doctors to have better data and better access to the well-being of the patient. And what didn't work for us? So first of all, we used Ethereum. I think it was the only blockchain that you could use kind of meaningfully at that time. So we saw very fast that the transaction fees are way too high to do everything on chain. And there were a lot of solutions that were brought to the space at that time, that we will have various network updates. People were talking about Lightning, about putting a lot of blocks in one block, shards, and so on, how the fees can be reduced. But as we know, despite all of these efforts, Ethereum fees are still a huge pain in the ass until this day. So the technology was not there. So then we moved part of the transactions off the chain. So this was partly centralized application. But from the business side of view, actually, I think instead of building our own app, we should have gone with the solution to someone who already has a lot of users, because it's very expensive and takes a lot of time to grow a B2C app. So we were investing a lot of time and efforts to actually attract the users. We grew the app to 300,000 users, something like that, 350,000 users. But for the data providers, it's interesting. You're interesting when you have a few million users, 10 million users. So I think would be a much smarter idea to go to those who already have these users and just offer an intermediary solution. Incentivize even more users to join the platform. So that's my reflection. Want to try? You're welcome. I can give a longer advice on that.
Do we have a very last quick one, or let's take who wants to? You guys decide so that you guys.
You guys decide under follow up or
So basically, my question is just.
do you mind? Can you
Come
mind
closer.
just come closer? Thanks.
So you mentioned around the.
There you go.
All right, so thank you.
Hi.
This is Gonzalo. I just wanted to ask, like, one of the reasons you moved from Ethereum to Polygon, it was a bit, but then, like, are there further reasons? Because I've seen in the webpage that you say that there are more features that you can leverage, and I just wanted to ask if you also consider, let's say, the impact on the environment of the blockchain that is proof of work instead of proof of stake. So now you've moved to Polygon, and then if so, why you are keeping yet the exclusive mint pool on Ethereum?
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
And maybe if you have a quick response, this would be highly appreciated. Thank you so much, Ada.
Yeah. Environmental concerns are important for athletes we work with. So some people, don't want to be associated to chains that are not good for environment. So it's definitely for people with a lot of visibility. It's an important question for us. What we wanted to solve was the scalability and the transaction fee and cost, like everyone. And the obvious go-to chain right now for gaming is Polygon. So these were the reasons, and we are working actually to update our NFT platform, also releasing a new token after the hacking incident that we had in January. So after that, we will be really Polygon first product. Yeah, so that was it. So thank you so much, and please me with the question.
Thank you so much, Ada. Loved it. How was it, class? Some more chairs? So much value. Thank you, Ada. Stay. Anything we can do here on behalf of UC Berkeley and the class, right? Just let us know, and vice versa. You guys have Ada's contact, right? Thank you so much again, and we stay in touch.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Really good, right, guys? Huh? A lot of things to unpack, right? Impressive biography, impressive experience in this new world of metaverse with ICOs, with coins, right? A lot of learnings that we all humbly are going through, right? One step at a time, one day at a time, right? I mean, it's still a new world. I liked it that she was very candid and honest at the end. Say, well, there are some things that we still need to figure out. Right? Again, my mission is here to assess a couple of peers in the market, right? And on one hand, share lessons learned, depending on which phase we are in. And everything is feels crunched even to me. We've been coordinating now 40 to 50 speakers between the guest speakers and the mentors. How have been the mentorship so far? I know that there are obviously in life always some ups and downs, but overall, you guys happy?
Yeah.
Better mentors or no mentors? What?
Better with mentor.
Mentors or no mentors?
Yeah, mentor.
Okay. Guest lecture, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
I think it's good.
No guest
Yeah.
lecture?
There's sometimes, I don't know. I think it's sometimes difficult to engage or like be engaged when they're just like super tiny on the screen. It's just hard.
So between no guest lecture and lecture, yes or no?
Or maybe we can have one day
I
guest
would go-
lecture longer and the other day of the week no guest lecture.
Oh, you would like to change guest lectureship?
Like, I don't know if it's provide more time to have only one day guest lecture on the week, it will be better maybe. So,
What you guys can do is we are super flexible. I mean, you see the lineup of guest lecture that we have. We have a couple of guest lecture coming up. They're all publicly there, right? I just spoke this morning or this afternoon with Philip, which was the founder of Second Life. Like, just take a look at who is coming, right? And then you can share if and create yourself a poll, right? And then you come back to us, obviously in time. Like I mean, we cannot cancel within the same day, right? And more than happy to accommodate you if you think that something is not of value. Yes.
Is it possible to have some guest lecturers in person, or is there any information about that?
So generally, 99% it's not in person. Also, the mentorship not in person because it's simply not possible to coordinate, right? And then we have some small exceptions that will come in person, right? But all the mentorship and all the guest lecture will be primarily remote. We have two that have committed, but don't even share it with you because otherwise it becomes an expectation, right? And if it becomes an expectation, then it's a disappointment, right? So we have two that want to come on premise, right?
I for one think that the guest lectures are really inspiring. I think that if they were like half the period, then the second half we would be able to use that energy in kind of team meetings. I think once that it hits 8 o'clock, it's hard to have another meeting with our own team, just because it's a long day, But I do think that the guest lecturers do really. These were people who clearly have invested in this space for a really long time. They seem to know a lot of what they're talking about, and it's just absorbing what they're saying, even if it's not totally relevant to our individual project. I think is pretty valuable.
I would second that.
Yeah, for mentors, I think it is always to have one more voice for the whole team. But it will be awesome if mentor has a very similar background to what we are doing, because right now blockchain is really big work. I think, for example, like infrastructure and some tools are really different from based on their requirements, like market fees and something like that. So if the mentor has very similar backgrounds with what we are doing, I think that'd be awesome. And second thing is, so for the guests, also I think guest opinion is really awesome because I think they're providing their real-time working experiences. But at the same time, I think for our students, we have a lot of information lost into our mindset. At the same time, we can give you more voices what we want to listen from them. So such as the topics, we can consolidate some information or voices what we want them to give us. So I think that would be also.
Okay, but regarding two things to unpack here, right? So thanks for sharing this. So regarding the mentors, as an entrepreneur, feel always free to make suggestions of what mentors you want, and reach out directly. Okay. In fact, I mean, two mentors, right? That's how in real life you would be doing it, right? For the purpose of this class, what I did is to try to filter mentors, right? What I'm definitely willing to do is if you centralize information of what your asks are, okay, or questions are, I can share them into the mentor pool. Obviously, I cannot grant that the mentor will be able to answer that. All the mentors are assessed based on blockchain and Web3, but as you were saying, it's so broad the spectrum, right? So two things, yes, centralized questions, right? But don't have the expectation that we find somebody just because of the time, right? And secondly, which I definitely encourage you to learn it from scratch, is approach mentors yourself, right? Which is part of the entrepreneurial life, which everybody of us should do, right? So maybe we want to organize a centralized document with questions, right? And maybe categorize them, mentor-related questions, right? And then we can try to find the answers. Okay, more than happy to, right? And you were sharing something regarding the point that you made again. Help me out.
I was just saying that I think the lectures are really valuable, even if they're not directly related to our individual project, right. But especially if we have some time afterwards as a team to be able to digest it and take from it.
every time that I'm here part of SAT, I mean, time and entrepreneurship is something that we all struggle with, right? And I want to be super candid, right? Expecting that you solve your class here in class, right? Or you finish your assignment here in class, you won't be able to, right? So you have to dedicate some additional time outside the class, right? So take notes and of what you think it might be applicable. If I would be in your shoes, I would definitely extrapolate what's valuable for you in your concept, in your idea, in your business, right? And then if you have more specific questions, then approach us, Dan or me, right? If it's a more entrepreneurial question, so and use us kind of a slingshot to maybe accelerate that, right? And ultimately, if Dan or I or the mentors, right, are not capable of providing it in time, then basically you would go the extra mile, right? Any other thoughts? Is this being good? Any other feedback? Any other thoughts that we want to drive? So action items, let's create a list, right? And then
sure.
we can categorize them, right? And also, please provide feedback regarding the upcoming speakers, right? Let's have a rule kind of 2 weeks ahead of time, and then you guys can take a call, whatever. You don't need, us to do it, right? So you can share a call or whatnot, right? Regarding the overall speakers, right?
Yes.
I think one thing that can be really helpful, and I'm not sure if it's possible. But if we can have the mentors on the Slack channel, because that would really streamline the communication between the groups and the mentors.
I have suggested tools to streamline the process. But it's, we're a public institution. We're not having the funds to invest in these other tools that would streamline the communication. Secondly, these are people that work full time, and the only commitment that they have is to dedicate this very specific time slot. Now, having said that, what I encourage you to do is to ask them if they are okay with staying in touch with you and sending emails, right? So that's definitely, I mean, if you don't ask, you don't know, right? And then, so I cannot invite them to Slack because otherwise it becomes almost a work for them, right? And then they wouldn't want to join us again, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Then the other logistical part, we are on office hours. Did you guys all see it? I shared with you guys office hours. I hope you guys are booking your slots and come prepared. I shared kind of a flow so that we can, maximize the outcome in office hours. We have presentations coming up. It's on the 15th or 17th. I don't have it in my mind right now, but something like the mid of next month, right? So the first presentation. The purpose of this first presentation is you're really getting out of your comfort zone for the first time, right? And we will be doing it 2 times before you're going actually in the end of May present, right? So that we can together work on, presentation version 1, presentation version 2. I will be sharing with you 2 main, 2 core things to the presentation. One is storytelling over the next week, okay? And a framework on how you design your deck. And obviously, there's so much information on the market nowadays, so I'll be sharing with you what I learned, okay? And then the other part is the value proposition, which also will come up next, which is core to every single messaging and message and core value that you provide with your product. Okay, this is coming now all in March. Good. What did we do last week as an assignment, or the assignment of this week's assignment? What is it?
Last week I was in ETM or so.
What did we have as an assignment for this week? Anybody? For this week?
Prototype.
Sorry?
Prototype.
Prototyping? Okay. What else?
Validation.
What exactly in the validation?
In terms of identifying like the storyboard in terms of the consumers and everyone.
Okay, so storyboard, prototyping. So what? Okay. Did you guys hear it?
Questionnaire.
Learning card, questionnaire. What else? There's a test card, a learning card, a questionnaire. Do you guys know for what you guys need that? Can you guys envision for what you guys need it? Yes?
Yeah, because actually we have to make a questionnaire to like draw some draw some question about the prototype that we made to present to our customers to know if like there are some adjustments to be made and to fit like the prototype based on the customer feedback because they will obviously use it. So.
Okay. Who has prepared some test cards, some questionnaires, and who would like to present it? Learning cards. There's something ready? Yeah. Who has some test cards, learning cards, who you guys would like to present?
So we have prepared some questionnaire before.
Okay.
Before last week, actually, we have prepared some questions.
Who prepared some test cards with the questions of the hypothesis that you would like to validate? Nobody?
We have questions, so we similarly.
Okay. Do you have it kind of on a test card and on a framework, or how did you put them together?
We basically would just point out like 30-minute conversation.
Is anybody watching the Zoom assignments that I showed with you guys? Right. And the links to okay. So the test cards, I've been using those test cards still to nowadays, right? With my teams, because it's fundamental for you to know what is it that you want to ask and what is it you want to learn when you prototype, right? And you can even have either everything in your mind or you have a plan for it, right? And the fundamental importance of those test cards are, maybe I'll ask you, why do you think these test cards are so fundamentally important?
What do you want to validate?
And what exactly do you want to validate?
That you're hypothesis.
Okay.
And like if what you design for the customer actually like fit the customer and if you understand the way you design the prototype because you might miss like some of his needs and because at the end like the customer will use your product so you don't have to design for you but for him. So
Anything else? Any reason why most of you have not used the test cards, John? You didn't like them or?
We are yet to.
What?
We're supposed to build them after the class. We are working on them.
Yeah. Have you guys looked at the test cards?
Yeah, we have prepared a test card. Yeah, but actually I think that would be an accessory to the questionnaire because the questionnaire will just like to have the whole community like answers. But test card is one is for us to understand or to have a core which we need to understand or which we need to validate. At the same time, when we interview with several like key users in person, we want to have the question to be answered from him. Like just focus on what we want. That's the focus.
Yeah, you usually when you prepare a test card, and maybe we want to throw up here some the test cards, so and go through that together, which they are explained online. Again, these are assets that the startup community is using, right? The main thing that I share with you, I'd like you to grasp in the test card is when you go out to your customer or you start talking with your potential target audience that you think is your potential audience, you're still in a phase of validation. There's still a hypothesis. We can search them on Google real quick. Test cards. I think it's from Strategy. That's a pretty good one. Right? The main thing that I learned the hard way is not just to have the hypothesis and the product definition, but
yeah, just pulling it up.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Is this a good example?
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah.
Sorry. There we go.
Yeah, one of them. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, fantastic.
Specifically here, the last part, right? It's for an entrepreneur. I think the aha moment, right? Which usually you always prepare for, okay, what is the problem am I solving? Okay, check. How do I want to pitch it? Okay, check, right? And how do I address the people, right? Okay, check. How do I want to measure it, right? Okay, kind of, okay, how do you measure? How do you, like, that's now, it starts already kind of, how do you measure your prototype? What signals do you measure? Do you measure because they say, well, I like it, right? And then you start asking yourself, but is this actually the real target audience that I want to have as my potential customer? Meaning you're starting validating and assessing the opinion of the person, right? And often the time at the beginning, it's very difficult or challenging because what many of us are struggling with is approaching folks, right? I mean, how do you get the feedback from your specific target audience? How do you get to many of, and how many? Like how many feedbacks do you think you need to have enough validation? Like if you go nuanced into this, like if you start thinking of details, right? Like how much feedback is a good feedback? Like you need to talk to 10 or 100 or 3, right?
Well, I guess there's some like statistical like model behind this. Like if you do like some randomness like on selection of your population, you should actually get a general sense of like how this target population you think about by using a relatively small sample size. But that's like another topic for how you actually pull your potential audience.
Yeah, and then the details there but are those valid target audience? Like, is this the real target audience that you want to talk?
Right? Yeah, I guess the tricky question here is you never know because the audience is kind of vague and the people who answered the question here was not exactly what you wanted to.
And what you do, what you want, when you don't really know, do you build a product, yes or no? I mean, these are commitments that you're basing, right? So the less you have a good feeling, accessible feeling, validated feeling, right? If the one who is answering the question is really the target audience, right? What do? Do you allocate resources to it? Do you build a product? Do you go into MVP? Question mark, right? These are all questions that are fundamental for us as an entrepreneur to figure out, right? And so what channels would you use actually to reach out to your target audience? How do you reach to your target? How do you start connecting with your target audience starting with the next days?
Social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
Okay.
Mostly Telegram or Discord or the crypto communities.
Okay. Okay. Are you testing your prototype?
I mean, it depends on your prototype, but you can do it in person and as well like online.
Okay, so one version in person, any other thoughts online we've heard? What tools are you guys thinking of using for online prototyping?
Like Miro, for instance, this kind of thing.
Okay, very good. Any other thoughts?
Other idea is like prepare like high fidelity, low fidelity wireframes, and even if you're not in person, we can get on a call with the other person. We can ask them to use it to see without like guiding them how like they are able to understand the flow. If the product actually makes sense, if they're able to relate with it, and like somebody said, testing the hypothesis, if the problem that we're trying to solve actually even exists for them, right? So those things.
I like the option A, option B version, like the A/B testing of things, right? So the more the closer you digital questionnaires good, gives you a sense. And in this phase of still prototyping, getting on Zooms or meeting in person, gives you I mean, nowadays, obviously, Zooms or any digital platform, but getting a sense on how the person expresses their sentiments or what they do is fundamental, right? And depending, obviously, now if you have a consumer product or a B2B products, right? Also, this very last part here, right? The result, the quantification, like, okay, if I'm B2B, how many people do I need to talk, right? Some of numbers that I share with obviously maybe more startup, like startup environment, right? To have 2 conversations a day with your target audience if you are in B2B, right? This gives you roughly, let's call it 8 to 10 conversations a week, right? And then you might want to run a test of a month, which should bring you at least something between 30 and 40 voices, right? And then before you start this conversation, you want to actually already kind of know what is it that you want to measure. Like, okay, what are you expecting? Like, are you expecting that they click on things? Is this the hypothesis, right? Are you expecting that they finish an entire journey through the tool, right? So before you actually go into this conversation, kind of have a pre-assessment yourself, right? And that's exactly the phase that we are in this class, right? We're in the phase between prototyping, validating the prototyping, gathering information from users, from target audience that we think is our target audience, right? And based on this information, what will happen is, on one hand, adjusting the hypothesis, right? Readjusting the product, the prototype that we are building, right? And bringing information back into the loop of production / marketing / channels in order to approach the target audiences, right? What are your thoughts, guys, on has anybody already started reaching out to customers? Okay, want to share some experiences maybe?
Yeah, we're still trying to isolate what our problem is. And I get the sense a lot of people are still in that stage, so I can speak for our team. So we've been talking to specifically like hiring managers, people who are hiring engineering talent.
How did you reach out?
Both just like personal people I know,
Okay.
like reaching out, hey, can we talk, as well as I was at September, so it's a lot of people there had conversations about challenges they have with hiring talent, and then LinkedIn. But yeah, I just had a question, just like how, if we're still at the, because I think it would be a mistake for us, for any team to just run through the stage like really isolating what your problem is. Like, sure, we can build a prototype, but we really want to figure out like what is, the problem that we're solving. Should we be using test cards for that? And just like, I don't know, if you just speak to kind of teams that are still in that stage, your suggestion.
As long as you don't have product market fit, you always have a question mark if you're solving the right problem, right?
Yeah.
And product market fit is then when the product is being accepted in terms of people swipe the credit card, which is the ultimate instance, right?
Yeah.
And the step in between is kind of learning through conversations, but also going in parallel with the. I mean, one thing is just asking somebody, and you test the hypothesis of you validating verbally the hypothesis, right? The other thing which people can say, oh, it sounds kind of cool. Oh yeah, that sounds kind of right. Yeah, or and then what does it they do if you presented something, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been framing it much more as trying to not be like, hey, do you like this idea? Like, we just want to understand your life as a hiring manager for engineering talent. Like, because I don't know, stuff I've seen online, lectures I've attended, like people really like. It seems like we don't want to just put something. Yeah, I mean, there's different stages of it, but like initially, you just want to understand their problem without skewing how they're going to describe their problem by throwing a product.
I have a kind of follow-up question regarding that. just how it seems like a lot of entrepreneurship is iterative. Like you make a first pass at some kind of idea or even a product, and then test it with a focus group or test it in a marketplace. But then it has to be changed to accommodate the realities of the market. Probably you're not going to get it the first time. My kind of question about this is, regarding Ada's talk, it seems like some of these token systems, people invest a lot in this initial coin offering and in this kind of, you create a product and then you have to get it out there. And I'm wondering, like, what you might recommend. Should we be taking an incremental process to get to our ICO, or like, should we shoot for something?
What I really liked in Anna's candid feedback was that, what did she say that she learned at the very end regarding token and product?
Utility.
And how did she allocate resources?
Yeah, there are two different products basically.
And then the question is really, do you have that? Like it's at the end of the day, it's all about prioritization and resource allocation. That's the decision that we have, right? And you only would have that depending on your A, structure of your team, B, the structure of your team depends very much also on the funding situation that you are, right? So now, what I'm sensing right now, I mean, we are in a super hot Web3 ICO metaverse token phase, right? If you put the right team together and you can have initial family and friends and early investors that take you into the first round of your company phase, meaning launching the actual company, right? Then I would, and you feel that the team that you have on your site complements you. One is on the product side and one is on the token side. Then I would still in the year 2022 do a parallel approach, okay? Because it's very new and the probability, again, if you fulfill these requirements, money plus talent, right? Then the probability of you going in a right direction is, let's say, pretty high, which in the future will definitely be less than this, right? Because then, at the end of the day, it's all about what is the core value that your product provides. That's exactly what Ada said, right? And the value of the token is directly related to the value that the token provides, that the product provides, right? So 2022, if you have the team and you have the money and you have, you want to go the extra mile, I would say there is an opportunity because we all recognize opportunities. That's how I would approach it, right? That's how I'm seeing how startups are approaching it today. Okay? Long term, focus on your core value proposition, and then you can always launch additionally your token on the side. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Guys, for next week, starting with this week, I mean, you guys have already started reaching out. It's all about really getting feedback from customers or potential target audience, right? Play a lot with the framework of reverse engineering your final outcome in the end of May. Imagine and picture yourself on stage or here at the SAT presentation, okay? It's going to be, I don't know, during a week time in the morning, you will be one of 10, 12 startups, okay? You'll have a crowd of 100, 200 people. Why should they listen to you? What is it that would make you say, wow, this is what they did? What would make you feel stunned about the achievement? What do you think?
Showing that people are interested in your project.
Absolutely. And it's called traction, right? So you can build a product, you can do a nice mock-up, you can have a great vision, a great team, right? But I grant you, the one thing that people will say, wow, I want to talk to you, is if you prove traction, right? And traction, I will be showing you also the next week, can be defined in a series of ways, okay? Meaning there is soft traction and there's hard traction, right? What's hard traction? It's revenue, right? People pay stuff, right? A form of traction would also be kind of fundraising, even though it's an indirect traction, but it's somebody believing in you. But let's say from a core value proposition perspective, hard traction would be revenues, people paying for it, right? Oh, but this is way too much expecting it, or nobody's expecting it, okay? But here and there, you see companies that actually get to that, right? If you want to then turn it down a notch, right, or go to the other extreme, but still talk about traction, right, and not just having a vision, right, then it would be kind of signups, traffic that you have on a website, community engagement, right, downloads of something, right? So picture yourself, reverse engineer. What is it that you want to show them, right? But I don't still have a product. I don't even know if my value proposition, the problem I want to solve is real. Well, this is now where you start basically dividing and conquering with your team. Okay, one does the prototype, one talk with the customers, then you re-meet, then you have feedback, then you launch kind of a community, right? You start engaged. So these are all things and tasks that we need to do in parallel as entrepreneurs. Always obviously one step at a time, but in parallel, right? So that's what I would really recommend you to start first. Allocate your resources very wisely. Who is doing what? Okay. Secondly, what kind of a traction model do you have in mind? Ideas on how you would basically start collecting data, feedback, right, and so on, and collect information. Bring the information back to your designers, to your developers, to your team members, right? And start switching and improving, right? Who of you has a consumer-facing product? End user, consumer-facing? Expectation 200, 300 users per week, 1,000 a month is an expectation what the market has. Can you get to that? Sign-ups, downloads. Okay, set yourself those goals that are kind of benchmarked in the market, right? So who has a B2B product?
We are basically both.
B2B, a great way of you showing traction. If you don't get to revenue, which nobody expects in B2B, but then letter of intents. Okay. So you approach your target audience and you say, and by the way, be very, very candid with your interviews. What I mean with very candid is, say that you're UC Berkeley students, okay, and you're working on an idea on a project, okay, and so rather than you trying to sell, that's what I want to convey. You are not in the mission now to sell anything because we don't have anything to sell. Right? So be very frank, and then people say, okay, cool, I want to contribute towards your project, right? What is it, right? Then another angle that I would like to share with you is mentoring. What we do here, or what you do also outside of your class, right? Obviously helps, right? Advisory board is somebody who supports you on an ongoing basis. Advisory board. So who is your advisor, becoming part of the board of the project, okay? So these are all multiplicators. These are all people that support you, right? That you build trust, and the common denominator in all these activities, regardless of mentorship, customer, is that they need to understand your problem because they align that with your mission, right? So I would right away start the approaching people with, hey, do you also believe that? Which I also learned very hard. So when you're an entrepreneur, you always focus on the product, right? And you start pitching the product. Oh, we have an API, we have a platform, we have a token, we have, right? I say, hey, do you also believe that this target audience has this problem, and that eventually there might be a solution that could solve it in that way, right? And if they say no, you don't have, trust me, you don't have the time to evangelize them and educate them, right? So then you start counting, okay, I asked X people and Y people gave me the answer yes or no. And then they obviously at the center of all this, you have to ask yourself, was this a target audience that's really should have understood the problem, right? So if you are in healthcare, right, and you're asking, I don't know, doctors, and I don't know about the details of the product yet, right? So who is your target audience? If you ask them and they say, and they answer you with I don't know, right? Then you want to reconsider. You want to reconsider if the target audience is right, if the value proposition is right, if the problem is right. Well, guys, I'd like to thank you. Any other questions? I can stay a couple of more minutes if you guys want to talk with me or something. All right. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you all online for joining.
Oh yeah, online we have a hybrid. How many people?
We do. We had 29 people online.
Okay.
Okay, amazing.
Do we have a
Thank you all.
Yes.
It was Lympo.
Where was that?
Right there.
Oops.
Yeah. Code word is Lympo for attendance. If you didn't get that. Awesome. Thank you all. See you later.